Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this online orientation to our Region 9 Healthcare Coalition's Disaster Medical Coordination Center Response Plan. My name is Ed Desi. I am the chair of the Region 9 Healthcare Coalition. To begin, a bit about the Region 9 Healthcare Coalition. This is our mission. What this means practically is that the coalition represents partnerships with a wide range of healthcare providers, including hospitals, long-term care facilities, dialysis facilities, mental health providers, EMS, public health, emergency managers, and others. Through these partnerships, we work together to improve healthcare preparedness and response to emergencies. This training is just one small example of the work the coalition does to help our region prepare for emergencies. Today I'm going to cover who this training is intended for, the purpose of the Disaster Medical Coordination Center, which I'll be calling the DMCC, some key points that should be noted, including who the DMCCs are, when the DMCC might be activated, and what the DMCC does not do. I'll then review a couple of key tools referenced in the Region 9 DMCC Response Plan, what implementing the Region 9 DMCC Response Plan looks like, the roles and responsibilities of key stakeholders when using our regional DMCCs in an emergency, and finally, contact information for our DMCCs and where to get more information on various plans, tools, and resources mentioned in this presentation. This presentation is an overview of the general principles and processes in the Region 9 DMCC Response Plan. It should be relevant to emergency responders, hospitals, and other healthcare providers, and local DMCC staff. There are 3 hospitals in our region that serve as our local DMCCs. I'll share more specifics on that in a minute. This training will not encompass every aspect of the plan, so we highly encourage you to review the Region 9 DMCC Response Plan itself. A link to it is provided at the end of this training. In the event of an emergency that severely impacts one or more communities, the DMCC coordinates where patients go for the best care, considering what care hospitals can provide and the patient's condition. Accurate patient placement is critical to making sure the patients receive the right care quickly. The reason we use the DMCC for this is to minimize the need for secondary transfers. In day-to-day situations, EMS and dispatch make patient placement decisions based on patient preference and the proximity of a hospital. When there are too many patients for a single hospital, figuring out where patients should go needs to be based on hospital capacity and capabilities. The DMCC has access to that information. So in emergency situations, we switch to a command approach where the DMCC makes the definitive decision on where patients are placed. There are 3 key points in the plan to highlight. First, in Region 9, we have 3 DMCCs. Providence Holy Family Hospital serves Ferry, Pend Oreille, and Stevens County. Deaconess Hospital serves Adams, Lincoln, and Spokane counties. Pullman Regional Hospital serves Whitman, Asotin, Columbia, and Garfield. These hospitals are responsible for assuming the role of the local DMCC during an emergency which affects one or more communities within their group of counties. In the event the local DMCC cannot fulfill its role, Deaconess is the local DMCC for that event. I should note that these 3 local DMCCs fit within a larger hierarchy, depending on the severity and scope of the incident that initiates the DMCC, and the availability of local resources to address the event, differing levels of DMCC might be activated. At a local level, which means the multi-county sub-region within Region 9, we have 3 hospitals serving as the local DMCCs, as I just described. For events that impact more broadly across Region 9, Deaconess Hospital is the regional DMCC, so Deaconess actually has 3 functions. They are the local DMCC for 3 central counties in Region 9. They serve as the backup local DMCC to Holy Family and Pullman Regional Hospitals. And Deaconess Hospital is the overall Region 9 DMCC for situations requiring broader coordination across the entire region. There is also a state-level DMCC response plan for events that impact multiple regions, or when Region 9 resources are exhausted and state-level assistance is needed. Today's presentation will only cover the local and regional DMCC response, which is described in the Region 9 DMCC response plan. I'll show you where to access the plan on the last slide. The second key point regards when the DMCC is involved. Activation of the local DMCCs happens when local agencies and facilities have exhausted all resources to manage patient distribution. There is no number or specific criteria for when exhausted happens. Bottom line, if you need the DMCC, you are empowered to call them and get them involved. The third key point addresses what falls outside of the DMCC's purview. DMCC relies on coordinating agencies like dispatch and emergency management for resources and transportation. The DMCC doesn't organize what transportation will be used, but does provide direction of where transportation is supposed to go. Also, the local DMCC does not track patients. Existing patient tracking protocols should be used to make sure other healthcare providers and family members know where the patient is at any given moment. There are a few tools that can assist in coordination when addressing patient movement, but I want to describe two tools that I'll be referencing specifically during this presentation and are highlighted in the Region 9 DMCC response plan first. WATRAC is Washington's web-based healthcare resource tracking and alert system for statewide collaboration on a daily basis and during emergency response. WATRAC is a vital tool for the DMCC to be successful. It has many features, but I just want to call your attention to a few that will be referenced today when a local DMCC is activated. WATRAC can alert all healthcare and hospital partners. Users can send requests to all hospitals to update their bed availability and agency status at the beginning and periodically throughout an incident. It can track all patients associated with the incident and track the availability of specialists at hospitals. It can also send an alert that the DMCC is standing down at the end of an incident. The second tool I would like to draw your attention to is the patient placement matrix. It was designed by area hospital emergency room directors to provide immediate patient placement capabilities as an immediate tool to aid dispatch. A copy of the matrix should be at the dispatch centers throughout the region. Dispatch officers track patient placement using this matrix to minimize overloading any one facility, which could result in treatment delays and unnecessary secondary transfers. However, the patient placement matrix's first group of 3 columns is only an estimate of hospital surge capacity and does not reflect their actual current status. It just provides dispatch with a general idea of hospital's patient capacity at the start of an incident. Then, dispatch uses the subsequent groups of columns in this tool to update hospital capacity based on the information gathered from hospitals by the DMCC. DMCC's role is to interpret available resources in WATRAC and communicate that information to dispatch. Dispatch then updates the patient placement matrix as a summary of the current bed status situation. In terms of how this plan might look when it is implemented, I want to walk us through an overview of the concept of operations. An event occurs, whether it is an accident, severe weather, or an evacuation of a healthcare facility, and dispatch receives calls requiring transportation and medical assistance. Once EMS is dispatched, the transport officer on scene is responsible for providing dispatch with accurate patient estimates to help guide patient placement decisions. Based on the severity of the situation, dispatch will contact the local DMCC to inform them that assistance is needed for medical placement. Dispatch will tell the DMCC an estimate of the number of patients and other basic information about the situation at the scene. Some of this information can happen over the phone when the DMCC is contacted, but it can also be communicated through WATRAC's command center. Then the DMCC sends a WATRAC alert to receiving hospitals that an event has taken place and requests that the hospitals provide information through WATRAC. Alternatively, dispatch can send out the initial alert. The key is, the alert should be sent as soon as possible. If dispatch sends the alert, they should inform the DMCC that the alert has already been sent. Additional information should be provided through the alert update function and not by sending new alert messages. And both the DMCC contact and the dispatch operator or shift supervisor will open WATRAC Command Center to serve as the virtual command center for patient placement sharing information. If at this point you are concerned that you are not familiar enough with the WATRAC functions, do not despair. There are trainings, videos, tip sheets, and helpful people available that we can connect you to. Please note that where there is no centralized dispatch, individual EMS dispatchers will need to coordinate with the local DMCC directly, and they will also need to have access to the WATRAC Command Center to aid them in the coordination. To continue, when a WATRAC alert is sent, hospitals receiving the alert should immediately evaluate their current emergency department capabilities and status and respond to the information the WATRAC alert asks for. Typically, receiving hospitals will be asked to provide bed and agency status and potentially the status of any specialty services if needed. Hospitals should respond within 15 minutes. Remember, the faster the response, the DMCC can make better and more timely decisions. Receiving hospitals should also begin implementing their medical surge plans to prepare for receiving patients. The DMCC uses the information received from hospitals as well as WATRAC bed status and WATRAC Command Center to evaluate hospital capacities and capabilities to inform placements. The DMCC then guides dispatch on where to place patients. As the hospital's situation changes, these updates go into WATRAC, the DMCC reevaluates, and again communicates with dispatch. And dispatch communicates with EMS on where to send patients based on the DMCC's direction. The initial group of patients may be placed utilizing the initial placement number ratios provided in the first group of columns on the patient placement matrix. Remember, those ratios on the Excel spreadsheet I showed you on the previous slide. Once hospitals have updated their information, the DMCC has been able to guide dispatch with more current and accurate placement ratios. In terms of closing out the event, the transport officer will inform dispatch when the last patient has been transported from the scene. Then dispatch will notify hospitals, including the DMCC, that the scene has been cleared and all patients have been transported. The DMCC will remain activated to assist in secondary transfers if needed to assure appropriate care of patients. Once all patients have successfully been transferred, the local DMCC will use WATRAC to inform hospitals that the incident is closed and the local DMCC is standing down. This process may seem rather complex, but the way this plays out during a real incident is much more fluid. On September 13, 2017, we had an active shooter incident at a high school 10 miles southeast of Spokane. At 10 a.m., the Combined Communications Center received calls from EMS needing transport for 3 wounded students. Let's take a moment to hear how the DMCC process worked.
Anytime we have an incident where there's an indication that we're going to have multiple patients that could potentially have an impact on the system, we try to activate the DMCC. So in this particular case, we knew that we had 3 red patients critically injured that were going to need some sort of intervention, probably from the trauma center, et cetera, and we knew we had 1 patient that was deceased at the scene. The impact there was that the law enforcement group, along with our rescue task force teams, were going through the school and sweeping, doing a room-by-room search. So with that in process, all we could do at that point was assume maybe we would end up with more patients. And that was essentially really the catalyst for us activating the DMCC, was that potential. We had no idea one way or the other. We knew what we had for confirmed patients, but we didn't know what we could potentially end up with after the fact when the sweep was complete.
When the CCC called, they let us know that they needed to activate the Disaster Medical Coordination Center in response to an incident that was occurring. They described to me the nature of the incident, the number of the victims, the ages of the victims, the natures of the injury. And because of the ages and numbers of the victims, it was determined that those patients would be best served going to Sacred Heart Medical Center. So after that, I asked them, are you planning on sending out an alert on WATRAC? And they said that they weren't going to, and so I told them that I would go ahead and do that. After I got off the phone with them, I immediately called the director of the ED at Sacred Heart Medical Center just to let him know the patients that were coming his way, and he said, we're ready to go and ready to accept all of them. After that, I proceeded to our Disaster Medical Coordination Center room, which is just off the emergency department, logged on to WATRAC and typed up an alert. The purpose of the alert is just to let all of the participating agencies and hospitals know what is occurring. In that alert, I try to provide them as much information as I can. And after that, I also established a command center in WATRAC. That is where we communicate any situational awareness that we have, that we've received from the scene or the Combined Communication Center, and communicate that to the hospitals. Our goal with that is also to obtain information from the hospitals based on their ability to accept patients and communicate where those patients are going.
As we've mentioned, the local DMCC process is focused on ensuring patients get the best care by supporting hospitals and dispatch centers in identifying the most appropriate healthcare facilities for patients during an emergency. The basic procedure for ensuring this is: local DMC system is notified of a potential or actual event that results in needing DMCC to be activated. The local DMCC acknowledges and responds to the notification from any agency within 3 minutes. The DMCC will activate their operations capability within 5 minutes of notification. Essentially, that means the DMCC alerts the impacted or necessary hospitals. To do this, the DMCC uses the All Call on WATRAC alert. This alert requests that the hospitals provide a facility capability assessment. The DMCC will contact any hospital that does not confirm that they have received the alert individually. In the earlier slide, we mentioned that the dispatch can also send out an alert to the hospitals. If an alert has already been sent, the DMCC will update that alert specifically asking the hospitals to provide a facility capability assessment. Hospitals do not need to wait for the DMCC notification to begin to gather information about their own facility capability to respond. The sooner the hospital can provide the local DMCC with information, the better. In an effort to minimize secondary transports, the local DMCC assesses the capabilities at relevant hospitals to determine the best plan for patient distribution. They do this by gathering healthcare facility capability assessment forms, including bed availability, specialty services availability, and an operational picture from the hospitals within 15 minutes of notification. So within 15 minutes, the DMCC sending out alerts, the hospital should respond with the requested information. The DMCC can then make decisions in an efficient amount of time regarding patient destinations based on the receiving hospital's ability to properly triage and treat. I realize that this is very redundant of what I have said on the previous slide, but this plan hinges on information requests going out quickly and the healthcare system responding quickly. So it bears repeating. The better we can get at understanding these communication tools and practicing our responses to them, the better prepared we will be. After gathering the information and matching patient needs to the receiving hospital's capability, the DMCC then provides guidance to dispatch regarding patient placement. The DMCC also notifies the receiving hospital of how many patients they will be receiving and the care needs of those patients. The DMCC tells the receiving facilities when the event is concluded. They do this by posting a disaster scene all clear message on WATRAC. This message means that all patients have been transported and arrival confirmed by receiving hospitals, and it ends the DMCC's role for that event. This means that the local healthcare facilities have a critical role in informing the DMCC. The healthcare facilities' roles, whether they are a receiving facility or a facility needing assistance in an evacuation, are to respond to any instructions received by the local DMCC. Typically, this would mean complete a facility situation report survey in WATRAC. If WATRAC is not available, there is a paper version of this report included in an appendix of the Region 9 DMCC response plan. You can fill that out and fax it to your DMCC. Healthcare providers should continue to update the facility situation report regularly to keep the local DMCC informed of the facility's most current status and capabilities. The healthcare facility also needs to notify the DMCC when the facility's capacity for a particular category of patients has been saturated. Beyond notifying and updating the DMCC, healthcare facilities also need to prepare to receive and provide care for a variety of potential patients, ensure patients are banded using a unique identifier if EMS hasn't already. If the patient is already banded, note the unique identifier in the WATRAC patient tracking feature because the healthcare facility is responsible for the tracking of all transported and received patients. Use WATRAC to do this. It is the most efficient way to keep everyone on the same page. The healthcare facility should also notify the DMCC if a patient does not arrive or if they receive an unexpected patient. And finally, once they receive the disaster all clear message, they should confirm that the facility is resuming normal operations. I should note that we've said healthcare facility here, and typically we are talking about hospitals. However, skilled nursing and other facilities may need to accept patients appropriate to their facility's care resources in order to increase the capacity of hospitals to accept more critically ill or injured patients. Here are a few more key roles to highlight. As we have mentioned, dispatch provides a central point of contact for coordination between the DMCC and emergency services. If there is not a central dispatch, the DMCC will communicate directly with individual EMS agencies. The transport officer on scene will be responsible to provide dispatch with accurate patient estimates to help guide patient placement decisions. And EMS provides transport for patients as directed by the transport officer and ensures, with the hospitals, that all patients are banded using a unique identifier to facilitate patient tracking. Please keep in mind, though, that in cases of evacuating facilities, it is highly unlikely that EMS will have the capacity to provide all needed transportation. Individual facility evacuation plans should identify alternative transportation options. As promised, here is the local contact information for each of the local disaster medical coordination centers. This information can also be found in the Region 9 DMCC response plan and on our coalition website. To activate the DMCC, call the relevant local DMCC number listed here. Ask for the DMCC contact and state, "This is an emergency. I need to contact your Disaster Medical Coordination Center representative," and be ready to describe the nature of the incident and an estimate of the number of patients. If you are a healthcare facility, have information about your own current capabilities. I'm going to leave this slide up here as I review some key information we have covered in this presentation. We talked about the purpose of a local DMCC being a mechanism to efficiently identify the appropriate clinical match for patients to receive the most appropriate care. We discussed what the DMCC does and does not do, specifically identifying that they are not responsible for transportation resources and tracking patients. We reviewed the concept, including how the WATRAC and patient placement matrix are used in this process. And finally, we reiterated the process by looking at the individual roles of different stakeholders, most notably the DMCC and healthcare facilities. We covered a lot, and if you forget everything else, remember these three things: how and when to activate your area's DMCC, to respond quickly to requests for information from the DMCC, and your agency's role in the DMCC plan. To end, we just wanted to highlight where to access different resources. This presentation was just a high-level overview of the Region 9 DMCC response plan. For more detailed information, please download the plan from the Region 9 Healthcare Coalition website. If you have not already had a WATRAC training, please look at our training calendar to find a training in your area. If there is not one in your area and you would like to host one, please contact us at hcc@srhd.org. We also have videos, cheat sheets, and other how-to documents on WATRAC under the Document Hub section. If you have forgotten how to log in or need assistance navigating the Document Hub, please email us so we can help. We want everyone to be as familiar with WATRAC as they can be, so the more often you go onto the site, the easier it will be to provide updates during an emergency. So think of this as a mini drill. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for your time, and please fill out the training evaluation linked below.